Are you ready to get real? Welcome to real estate, the world's loneliest career, where you're always out of balance, unfulfilled, the role models are fake, the numbers unattainable, and you're just supposed to be and do it all. Join self-made millionaire real estate agents, wives, moms, and business owners as we level up, learn from special guests, and elevate and disrupt an entire industry through real education our way.
Hi, everybody. Oh my gosh. It has been forever. We're so excited to be here. Thank you for letting us take some time off for family stuff. We had some pretty brutal family stuff happen. My voice is still not back 100%. It's driving me crazy. Isn't that weird? Oh. Uh-oh. Angela froze. Did I freeze?
I don't think either of us froze.
Maybe you just were looking at me very intently. Anyways, so in the couple weeks that we've been off, a lot has changed.
A lot. Pretty much everything has changed.
Like we're in a whole new market.
Yeah.
What would you call this market?
Buyer's market?
Definitely. We both have listings that are hanging out on the market. I mean, the whole country, every listing in the state of Colorado is hanging out on the market right now, but it's the whole country as well. So it's definitely not isolated for anyone that's watching and is like, why are my listings not selling? It really seems like the Fed raising rates combined with the fear of inflation and all that other stuff that's happening right now just made every buyer out there stop buying.
Yeah. It's like they all went on vacation or went into hiding or stopped driving their cars and are hanging out at their apartment. Something's happening, but they're not buying. I don't know where they are, but they're not in the market.
My lender friend, and not saying this to freak anyone out, but just to kind of get a grasp of where we are. My lender friend said that he heard from all his agents that this past weekend was the slowest weekend that they've seen since 2008. And he also said that this is the first week since 2008 that he has not received a phone call from a new buyer.
Yeah.
So it's pretty intense.
So with that being said, where are the buyers? Literally, where are they? My opinion is that they are renting. They extended their leases last year when they process. And so they just extended their lease. So a lot of out of leases and into homes.
My opinion is they're either renting or they are terrified of the market.
I don't know that it's the market they're terrified of.
Well, they're terrified of not understanding what's going on, in my opinion. So a couple weeks ago, I'd had this conversation with my friend. Her kids were buying in another state. They weren't obviously using an agent that I referred. And they just kept telling the mom, well, we just can't get a house, but we don't understand. The houses are just kind of sitting there. And the mom was like, well, why don't you offer less? And the kids were like, we can do that?
Right.
We literally were unaware of the fact that we were allowed to make an offer less than list price, and not only less than list price, but less than $100,000 over list price. So I do think that there's a potentially large amount of people who are they just don't know. They don't know what's going on. They don't understand that things have changed, because things have changed in what, 3 weeks, 30 days?
3 weeks. Completely changed.
Completely changed. So they've changed so fast that I think that buyers don't even understand that they could get a house for list, they could get a house for under list, right? And they definitely don't understand how interest rates impact their buying power either. So
right. And I don't think that the nationwide news is doing a good job of explaining the market because they're so far behind, they have no idea. And so their narrative is interest rates are high, interest rates are high, interest rates are high. When in reality, what are interest rates today on a regular conventional 20-year or 30-year fixed, 20% down? Like
maybe 5.5.
5.5?
Mm-hmm. Maybe.
Is that really like preventing someone from purchasing a house? No. Is that really the worst interest rate that we've ever seen? No. That's something that could be bought down to a 4.5 probably, or lower than $15,000, and the seller could probably end up paying that for. Where the narrative is coming from that people can't or shouldn't be buying a house right now, that our market is crashing. I don't think our market is crashing. It just went from, it surpassed the level market where it's even on both sides to, oh shit, now it's a buyer's market. But that's because there's no buyers. There's no buyers.
Oh, what's hilarious to me though is like literally the last 2 years, what have we heard consistently? Like, I'm not buying until there's a break in the market. I can't buy until there's a break in the market. Like, I will not pay $100,000 over asking price. So I'm going to wait until that stops to buy. So I'm like, here we are. Why isn't every single human being on planet Earth out there buying?
And why aren't the investors buying?
I think it's just fear. I mean, I think that everyone is very panicked. You know, we're supposed to see new inflation numbers later this week. I think people are very, very, like I was sharing with Angela off camera that, you know, we go camping with a big group of people, and like for the first time ever in the history of like going camping with this group of like 60 people, this year we've had people say, I'm not going because I'm afraid to spend the gas money to drive on the trips. And we're like, whoa, you know? So I really think that is, I think it's just frustration and fear, you know? And again, I think it's like miseducation. You know, I think every real estate agent, like it literally makes me want to like, it makes my brain bleed. The number of agents who are spending all day long in Facebook groups going like, are we headed for a recession? Oh my God, we're headed for a recession. When what they should be doing is researching very specific key data points and talking about that on their social media, not spreading this fear. Like, you're literally killing your own industry. It's blowing my mind.
And you're not smart enough is the bottom line to predict this, just so you know. You don't know what the indicators are, and likely that narrative is coming from agents that have been licensed less than 5 years and have no idea what the fuck they're talking about. And that fear is causing you to kill your own business. Mm-hmm. When your narrative should be, hey, buyers, now is a great time to jump in. I know you've been waiting for a good time. Now is that time. You can probably buy a house with little to zero money down and really low earnest money, and maybe get the seller to even pay your closing costs right now. What are you waiting for? Now is that time. Yeah. Now is like the unicorn time for you to like jump into the market and get an incredible house that's going to gain equity. And you're not going to have to worry about competing with 50 other people. You might not compete with anyone.
My favorite thing that I've seen over the last couple of weeks was Dave Ramsey made a brilliant post up in my in the chat. It was so good. Dave Ramsey, I don't know if you guys know who Dave Ramsey is, but he's a financial coach, and he literally does not tell anyone to buy anything ever. Like ever. He is very incendiary. People are obsessed with making fun of him because he's so conservative financially. And the other day he put out this whole post about how, and backed with very solid data about how this is probably the best time in the next 5 years that you will see to buy a home. And it's, you know, I mean, we're here more today to talk about like how to try to propel your business forward. I'll put that article in the chat, but you know, the fact remains that a recession, the only thing that a recession means is 2 months combined of economic decline, right? It doesn't mean a housing market crash. Those are very, very different things. And it's in every recession, outside of 2008, properties, home prices have still appreciated. They've still gone up in value. In the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of recessions that we've tracked as a country, the only recession that actually prohibited home values from increasing was 2008. This is not going to be another 2008. It's impossible because of inventory levels. It does feel particularly scary because we just came off such a hot period that it feels so much more dramatic. But the truth is, it is the best time probably that we will see in the next 5 years. The Fed has been very serious about the fact that they will continue to raise interest rates and home prices will continue to increase. It won't be 20% year over year like we've seen, but they'll continue to go up somewhere between 1% to 5%. Like in a healthy year, 3% to 5% is average. So if you consider the fact that rates will rise and prices will rise, it is the best time to buy. But I thought it was hilarious that he,
of all people, is like,
of all people, said, get out there and buy right now. So I'm going to throw that up in the chat because that was a very, very powerful article. There's some political stuff in there that's incendiary because that's who he is. So ignore that, but very powerful.
I would say too, like, I would think between right now and November or like mid-October is probably the very best time to buy. Because I think around that time, while the prices of houses might go down a tiny bit, the interest rates are going to go up quite a bit. So that'll change your buying power.
And we know that that part of the year, the second half of the year, is already quieter than it usually is, right? It's that like January through May time that is typically like that time period anyways. So okay, so if the problem is that we're not getting any showings on any of our listings because basically the buyers have disappeared, how do we change this narrative and how do we go find some buyers is the question.
I think that a lot of listing agents have just been focusing on getting listings because that's, you know, what we've inherently been told. But in a changing market, you have to change your business. And if the buyers are controlling the market and you don't have those, you're not controlling the market. So now you're on the defensive instead of the offensive, and that's not where you want to be. So you need to go for more of the buyers. So how do you get those buyers? So that's what we're going to talk about today. So Lindsay and I have been talking for the last couple of days on some strategies to use to capture some of those buyers and get them back into the marketplace. So I don't know if you want to start, but we've had like a lot of dialogue on this. So
yeah, I mean, it's going back to everything that we did do in 2008, by the way, which we are not saying that this is going to turn into 2008, but you know, for anybody who's ever been in the business long enough to go through a true recession or a true crash, let alone like a 2008 Great Recession type period, you figure out how to go get those buyers, right? And it's a very different skill set than going after listings. We've had it easy for about the last 10 years, I would say. It really sucks that like we're coming off of this, I would call period of burnout because we've been running for so long that everyone is tired. And I think they thought they were going to coast this year. And then it's like, surprise, we're going to have to actually work harder. So
this, I think, will definitely be the year that we see agents jumping out of the market, and maybe early next year where they're just like, we can't do this. We don't know how to lead gen, which is what you're going to need to do in this market, because just getting listings is not going to help you close listings. So you need to get some buyers that are going to help you close those. So I'm going to start rolling it out.
Yeah. How do you cold call buyers, Nancy? Has anyone on this call ever even done that before?
She's not a realtor.
Yeah, but she knows that, and she's not a realtor. Oh, she's very smart.
Have they been calling you, Nancy? Have realtors been calling you and bothering you? I bet they have.
They should be.
So I would say social media is really powerful. I think you just have to change the narrative and change who you're directing your posts towards. Because typically we are marketing towards listings, right? And how quickly our house sold or how far over asking price our house sold for. But buyers haven't seen those posts yet that say, we got under contract with $1 earnest money and we got the house for 30 grand under asking price. And our realtor was awesome and got us all of our closing costs paid. They aren't seeing those posts because they're not out there, because people aren't advertising them. And so the buyers are still hanging out in their apartments, paying their $3,000 a month in rent, and not knowing that they could be owning a home for, $500-$600 a month less than that, probably, at least in my market. I don't understand why we're not going towards all of those people that were not able to get into the market previously. Like, just marketing to, a Facebook page for those different apartment complexes is a great place for you to start. You can start your own Facebook page for the neighborhood, or jump in there as a realtor and give some advice. Find out whose leases are coming up, or how much it is to break a lease. I bet right now a seller would pay that. Even some realtors probably would pay that, but I think that, if you really think outside the box here, you can really shift your business and take over really quickly. You got to think about, like, in 2008, 2009, 2010, we were working for home builders. I was anyway. And we had to figure out how to get more buyers to our models, how to drive traffic. And that's what we're trying to do now. We're trying to get more buyers to our listings. So how are we doing that? What do builders do? That's always what I look at. Like, what are the builders going to do when they need to all of a sudden drive their traffic back to their models? So what do? They offer lower earnest money. So earnest money of $1 is what I used to take. And we started doing that, and that was super successful, because honestly, if somebody's going to get out of the contract, they're going to get their money back anyway, for the most part, as long as they don't make some kind of egregious error on dates. So $1 earnest money, seller paid closing costs. If they're military, they can pay up to 4% of the purchase price towards debt reduction. The seller can. That changes their buying power significantly. They can use it to reduce the interest rate. They can use it to buy or pay for debt that they might have, rate buy downs, all of that good stuff. So they can do all kinds of stuff with that, in addition to closing costs, 4%. And they also do frequent realtor programs where, if the same realtor or the realtor from a small brokerage brings them repeat business, they get a bonus. And a lot of brokerages don't have a split paid on a bonus. And that's why builders do that, is because they know that those realtors aren't going to have to pay an extra split on that $1,000, $5,000, $10,000 bonus program that they have. So that's what that's all about. So there's like some quick, easy ones. I don't know how it works on the resale side, if we're allowed to do realtor bonus programs, but I asked my husband about it, who's our employing broker, yesterday, and he's like, oh God, here we go. I'm like, question as an employing broker.
Yeah, as with anything that we talk about on this show, check your state regulations and RESPA guidelines. You should know them before you ever do anything. But yeah, so like the first thing that you said that I want to go back and dig into is changing the narrative on Facebook, because every single post, I guarantee you, if I audited 20 agents right now, okay, every single one of them is going to be spitting out some version of the no, we're not in a recession conversation. That's what they're all talking about, right? Buyers, sellers, consumers are so smart, you guys. They're so smart now. It literally blows my mind, right? So whether or not we are, it doesn't matter. They've made their decision on whether or not we think that they are. So I don't think that just like standing up on top of the mountain going, oh, hey, look this way, ignore this, like what you're thinking or feeling isn't correct is like the way to go. So like you said, I think that the things that should be shared are, we love data on this show, right? Like maybe number of price reductions, meaning whatever it is, 21% of my market, 21% of our market this month sold for less than asking. Didn't you know that you could get an amazing, deal right now, basically? Did you know that sellers are willing, for the first time in probably 3 to 5 years, they're willing to accept down payment assistance. They're willing to accept VA loans. They're willing to accept less money down. They're willing to offer money towards closing costs. They're willing to offer money towards your rate buy down. Those are the type of things that we need to be talking about, right? Yeah. Like, it doesn't matter if you stand up there and tell people that we're in a recession or not in a recession. The buyers have disappeared. So clearly they feel something, right?
Yeah.
So your job is to step in.
Prices, cost of living has gone drastically up and not commensurate with pay.
Just go to the grocery store and buy groceries for your house.
God, groceries.
It's insanity, right? Go to dinner for two people at like not at Chipotle is $50 right now. So it doesn't matter whether or not you think we're in a recession. Buyers are feeling something because, and we know that they're feeling something because they've completely gone away, right? So you have to change the narrative. And we believe right now that the narrative change that needs to happen is we need to tell them that the market is balancing out. Like they might not realize that.
If you're focusing more on the opportunity and less on the major issue at hand that you personally have a problem with, then you're going to have a lot more success in the marketplace. Like this is a massive opportunity for these buyers. And if you're not presenting it in that way, you're going to be missing out because a lot of realtors are going to start doing that really quickly because we all remember what it was like, a lot of us do.
I have to go back to Nancy really fast. Nancy says she was a telemarketer back in the day and a loan officer. She freaking loves cold calls. No one freaking loves cold calls. So if anyone wants to hire a cold caller, call Nancy because she's clearly amazing. We got to change the narrative, right? So I think you just nailed that so well. Stop focusing on the problem, start focusing on the opportunity. So start gathering data points that you could use to entice buyers, right? Because how we flip the market back, it doesn't matter if we're talking in the market nationally or even in your state, how you flip your own market back right now is going after buyers, right? So
take your market share back.
Yeah, this is a tricky one. Like you don't want to stand up on Facebook and talk about how much price cutting you had to do on your own listings, right? So gather data points outside of your own listing business. How many houses had price reductions? How many houses sold under list price? What in the last 3 weeks, the average sold over closed price has changed to? The number of homes, maybe every week, every day, you could go into your MLS. Again, you need to check your city state regulations. In our market, if it's another agent's listing, we have to include their information, right? The brokerage name and their name. But maybe every week, every day, every whatever you decide, highlight a listing that is giving closing costs or interest rate buy downs. Like this marketing is not for John Smith, who is sitting on your Facebook page to be like, oh my God, I want to buy that one specific house. That is not what this is about. This marketing is for every John Smith that you know to start to come around mentally, emotionally to the fact that the market has changed and now John Smith might be able to have more buying power, right? So
I think if we focus on more of those celebration stories when we do get our buyers under contract for, like I have one that they were in the market. They're actually my tenants on one of my properties. It might be listening today actually. But they ended up getting under contract on a property for like 1.15 and it was listed at like 1.29.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that's crazy in this market. And that's a brand new build, like a gorgeous new build. So that's a massive story. So we should be telling those stories and telling people about the deals that people are getting right now. Because buyers are tired, they're beat down. And this is like a little victory story for them. And we need to tell it, It's not just about your sellers making, $400,000 in 2 years. Like it's about your buyers, not having to use their entire life savings on an appraisal gap. Like, come on.
Yeah, big deal.
All victories are huge for these people.
Big deal. This is the hardest part. The market changes like that, as you've seen, and it's really hard to pivot yourself. So imagine not being in the market every day, right? Like imagine what the buyers are feeling right now. Imagine what the sellers are feeling right now. They're like, what just happened? Everything has to be crashing, right? Like I would feel that way too if I didn't study it on a daily basis. So Nancy says, I can't put your comment up on the screen because, I can't. Are market values coming down or will they? See, we love you, Nancy, but the market does not know what's happening. we were talking about moving to Wolf Ranch for a school district, but the homes are skyrocketing. And it seems absurd to buy for so much. Tell me more. So this is, in my opinion, Angela's opinion, like the entire reason that we need to flip this narrative, right? Yeah, pricing is coming down. I mean, it's not coming down 2008 level. You're not talking about 50, 60, 100, $150,000 off most properties. You're not going to see that again.
No.
Like for anyone who is asking, you won't see that. That's never going to probably ever happen again. We are still estimated between 5 and 6 million housing units in the United States short. There's still absolutely a supply and demand issue. The problem is that even though we have no supply, the demand halted like overnight because everyone panicked about rising interest rates combined with rising prices, combined with inflation rising their cost of their daily living. So yes, market values are coming down.
Yeah, to give you an idea, Nancy, in your neighborhood specifically, I'm sure you know Mariah. I sold her house for an asinine amount of money and it just closed last week because it was under contract for a month and a half. They lived in that house for less than a year and we sold it for basically $170,000 more than they bought it for. I would sell that house now for 50 grand less. And pray to God we get showings.
Yeah, I mean, right now, I would say, I heard a statistic, I need to research this, so don't hold me to the Bible on this, but I heard a statistic that said every 1% that we go up in interest rates equates to 1 to 3% in lost value in equity. So if we've gone 2% up in interest rates, that could equate to some 6% lost in value. There are isolated pockets, there are isolated houses that are really special that are still selling really quickly. What's been a trip over, I would say the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks maybe, is that even the lower price points are getting hit right now.
Yeah. I got one at 415 that I can't get people to come see. And I'm like, what is happening?
Same.
Like, I don't know what to do there. And it's a desirable house, desirable neighborhood, desirable location. But it's like my hit counters I'm looking at my stats and I'm like, no one's looking at this house. What the hell? How can I get this property out to these people? I will tell you, my staging business is going gangbusters right now. Every agent in town, I swear to God, is calling me to get me on their schedule this week and next week because houses are sitting. And I think that that's a good indicator that listing agents are now all of a sudden trying to shift their business to make sure their listings look good, because the houses that do look good are still the ones that are selling faster. So
agreed.
You're not going to have a bunch of people just jumping in and buying a house with shit on the floor and trash and all of that. And they're not going to pay top dollar for it. They're not even going to go see it. And the investors for some reason aren't even going out and seeing it.
Yeah. So Nancy, we're going to use you as a case study. We love you. But Nancy's response to, prices are going down a little bit is, good to know, which is what we're trying to say as a whole, right? Which is the buyers don't understand that the market is changing. Now, again, we're not talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. We're not there yet. Like Angela said, for the very first time in my 21 years in this business, I don't know if we're going to get there. No one knows if we're going to get there, right? So we aren't sure what happens next. However, we don't think that that's possible just because of the lack of housing units, inventory, right? Demand, supply.
It's really slow. It's really low.
That is out there, but so we don't think it will get there. But this is the best window that a buyer has seen in, what do you think, 5 years, 2 to 3 years? Yeah, long time. So you need to be flipping that narrative to start explaining to your buyers that this is their window, right?
Mm-hmm.
This
and
is
sellers like, hey, if you're going to sell and stay in this market, just know that you might not make as much on the sell side, but you're going to save a lot more on the buy side than you would have previously. So it's going to even out.
Carrie, hi Carrie, we love you. Carrie says, what about entry level condos, townhomes in Denver Metro, low mid 2s to low 3s? Those are still faring very well. Anything I would say below like the 450 line, maybe even the 500 line in certain areas, is still doing very well. It's mostly days on market, and that's really making people panic. So we talked about this a couple weeks ago, but I'm going to say it again. If you're an agent, you need to listen to this. If you're a seller or thinking about being a seller, you need to listen to this. It isn't normal to sell a property in 24 hours. That is not normal in a balanced market, which is probably what we're sitting in right now. It is normal for a property to sit 30 to 90 days. Now, National Association of Realtors says 83% of all agents in this market have been licensed less than 3 years. So 83% of agents in this market have never seen a price reduction. They've never seen a house not sell in 3 days. So they're panicking and they're doing these panic price reductions. Like, I'm seeing people go on the market and 12 hours later reduce their price $100,000. Slow down. If you're a seller, you need to know that you might sit on the market for more than one weekend. You're going to sit on the market for more than one weekend. But that price point, it's not affecting your pricing as much right now. It's just sitting a little bit longer. I think what's affecting pricing is the people that are lowering their prices just because it's called a falling knife effect. It's an economic principle, right? So what it means is that house A goes on the market and house A doesn't sell in 24 hours. House A panics. They drop their price $25,000. The next house B that goes on the market is probably going to go on $35,000 less because they saw A reduce their price 25. The next house that goes on the market is going to probably go on 45 less, then 55 less. That's how the knife of pricing falls really quick. The same way that for the last 2 years, we've been talking about the knife of pricing flying up. House A sells for X, house B goes on the market for 50 higher. Right now, we're seeing the opposite effect. So if you're an agent, unless your sellers have a reason, like a 911 reason, like they're under contract on another house, someone is dying, they have to sell, don't do price reductions after one weekend. Please, you're hurting your own industry.
Yeah. And you're hurting your client's bottom line.
It makes me so mad.
It's always like in the absence of value, you reduce the price. That's your go-to. Why not just spend more money on marketing? Why not get more people to see the property? Why not do a little bit more effort? Why not stage your house? Why not do professional photography? Why not do any of those things? Well, it's just easier for me to reduce the price. Well, that's because it's not your money.
Preach. I like the way you said that. It's also easier to just reduce the price because you're fearful, right? And we've talked about this repeatedly. When do we make a price reduction? When you've been on the market, average days on market, or when you've been through the average number of showings in your area that you should have for that property in a month or in a week or whatever it is, which in my market, it's like 10 to 11 showings will translate to an offer if I'm priced correctly. Right now, I can't even get 10 to 11 showings on some of these.
Right. I think that a lot of our market, at least down here, I'm seeing massive amounts of open houses. To the point where no one can actually go to that many open houses, and no one is doing it effectively. Zero. They're not being marketed effectively. No one's showing up. I mean, like an active open house is getting 4 families through it. You know, that's like a good one. So if we're not providing that value, how else are we getting those houses out there on the list side? And for our buyers, like, what an opportunity for our people. Like, reach out to your sphere, reach out to those people that you have put into rentals last year because we couldn't get them under contract. Because I don't know if you guys saw this, but Home Partners America, one of the biggest buyers of our listings, has just raised their minimum credit score for their tenants to 620. You know what else is a minimum credit score of 620? Pretty much any mortgage. So what is their value now at this point? You don't need to go in with cash to buy these houses. You can buy it yourself on a regular mortgage. So you don't have to go through those cash investors to get it. So the only thing that they're going to be buying right now is just portfolio stuff for rentals that they already have in backlog, which they probably don't have a lot of because they spent the majority of their money last couple months buying a whole bunch of overpriced houses. And I have one right now. Like one of my friends, Amber, she's a great realtor here. She had a listing that we staged right up the street from another listing of mine that was literally less than a half mile from each other. Same exact floor plan. Hers sold to regular party residential client, and mine sold to Opendoor. They were not paying attention to our market. So her house sold for $417. My house sold for $468. Why? Because they didn't know. They didn't know better.
But your buyers know better right now. So we got to flip the script on how we're talking about what we're talking about. So I don't think we're saying stop posting those sold in 24 hours for over asking price. We're not saying that because if you
are, I want to know about it because I want to know what you did. So I'm going to call you.
Underpriced, undervalued the shit out of your client's property. So real talk, by the way, in every market except for what we've been in the last 2 years, if you sold a house in 24 hours, if you sold a house in 1 week, you were a shit listing agent because you undervalued the shit out of it and you probably lost your client's money. That's what people don't get, right? Like we are heading towards a balanced market. We're in a balanced market. This isn't the sky falling, but this is agents falling all over the place who don't have the skill, right? So I'm not saying stop posting the listing stuff because if you swing this pendulum, if we as a market swing this pendulum too far, then we're going to keep all the sellers from listing. Then we're probably going to flip it back to what we had for 2 years, right? But you don't want to keep your sphere of sellers or people that you're talking to that are sellers. You don't want to make them fearful either. They should be motivated probably to sell right now, but you don't want to make them fearful. But you need to start posting, talking about cold calling, however you reach people, buyer success stories if you have them. And if you don't have them, then buyer data, right? So what is going on? How low can they get a house for right now? How does that balance out? You really, in these times where things are shifting for buyers, you need to have your lender on speed dial and you need to be talking to them like on a multiple time a day basis. You're going to be driving them crazy, but here's the funny thing. They have nothing to do right now. So they're going to be taking your phone calls.
But I think it's really important to have 2 different types of posts on your social media for every house. For every listing that you have, you should be marketing to more sellers and to the buyers that need to be purchasing them. So you need to get really real about how you're marketing and who you're marketing to and understand how to do targeted Facebook posts, because you don't want just other sellers to see your listings. You also want those buyers to come and bring those buyers to your listing. And that's how you're going to grow your business. And the agents that figure that out sooner than later are the ones that are going to be selling the most. And the ones that don't are not going to be in the market very long. Most people don't have savings of 6 months. They usually have 1 to 3 months. So we might not see them at Christmas time.
Yeah. I think first thing would be start pivoting your social media marketing to talking about buyer success stories or buyer data, which could be, again, like look at all these houses that have price reductions. In the presence of fear, people need information and they need data. It's the unknown that scares people from doing things. So now is a really good time to not just post a happy, fluffy story, like post data, like go into your MLS, post screenshots, post graphs, post all that stuff. Whatever, 21 listings had price reductions this week. That's 21 houses that buyers could have gotten a good deal on. There's 12 listings in our county right now that are offering to pay your closing costs. Here's what your closing costs are and why that matters to you. And to pay an interest buy down. Here's what an interest rate buy down is. And this is why it should matter to you. Posts in tandem with a lender about like, hey, here's this house of the week that's offering a $10,000 interest rate buy down. That means that you could buy your interest rate down to, I don't know, 4%, 3%, whatever it is that you could do with that $10,000, right? Hey,
my buyer got this house for, $1,000 down. They paid off debt. They didn't have to pay closing costs, and their payment is X versus what it would have been when they were renting.
Exactly. Hey, average rent in our city is X. Here's all the houses that you could buy right now that would make your rent payment equal to less than or just a smidge above your mortgage payment. Yeah, you know what I'm trying to say. Like equal to your rent payment. And by the way, the numbers, and again, go find the articles, go post the data. In the presence of fear, people don't believe you. So post the damn data. The articles on what rents are going to do, it's terrifying.
Yeah, people are going to be living like 3 or 4 families to a house because rents are going up so astronomically quickly.
So what happens when interest rates go up? What are these major apartment complexes and these major? So don't forget, guys, that we have been talking for the last almost 2 years on this show about corporations purchasing massive amounts of America's land and properties. Massive amounts. That while all of this housing crisis, being homes really expensive, was happening, the real housing crisis that was going on behind the scenes was the fact that there are corporations out there who now own hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of American properties. What happens when it gets harder or less desirable for the average American to get a mortgage?
Yeah. They
all stay renters. They all turn into renters. And what happens to the supply demand of rent? Rent fucking skyrockets because now corporations that own, from what I've seen, somewhere between 20 and 30% of American single family homes can charge whatever the fuck they want because now it's harder to get a mortgage. Nobody wants to buy anything, right? Like this is a crunch on the average American that is, it's despicable. Like there's no other word. It's disgusting. But rent
issue too is generational wealth will become almost unable to be achieved if you can't provide home ownership. It's going to be really hard to have generational wealth, and your kids are going to end up being tenants. You don't want that as a parent. You want to own a property, right? You want them to own. So instead, everybody's just going into rentals because what they're thinking is there's a lot of amenities here. I don't have to do much. I don't have to worry about it. And if I want to move, I can move whenever I want and not have to worry about selling a house. But they're not thinking about long-term. They're thinking about right now. And that's the problem with our younger group of people. They don't think about the next 5 years, the next 10 years. Like if my kids were to be able to buy a house when they were 20 years old instead of renting until they were 30, 40, whatever, they would have such a head start on everybody else with paying off that debt. Like that's massive. Like
there's a lot of articles out there about what you just said, which is like amenity porn. Like this is like a whole thing. Like there's actually articles about how that is specifically sucking generational wealth out of average Americans because these kids are so all these people are just so like sucked in by like, oh, well, they give me this. Oh, well, they give me that. Or we'll get, like whatever. They have a wine cellar. They have a swimming pool. They do my trash for me. Movie theater, right. Where the amount of money that they're spending to have the same services a la carte and owning a home is like astronomical. And it's really, really hurting people. But yeah, I mean, rents are going to go sideways so fast. It's terrifying because, that's exactly what happened to housing prices. Housing prices skyrocketed because there was too much demand and not enough supply. Now it's going to flip to apartment buildings and rent is going to go like absolutely bonkers. So that's a great talking point. Did you know what your rent is going to do in the next 2 years? Even if you have to get a 30-year fixed mortgage at 5.5%, do you know what your rental rate increase could potentially be next year, 2 years? At least you're fixed into 5.5%. At least your landlord can't keep raising your rent 3 or 4% a year.
And I would start thinking about reaching out to the property managers that you've built relationships with, because they're the ones that are going to be really excited to turn over these properties so they can raise the rent on them. And they might be willing to help you out by telling you who's coming up next. Maybe you can market to this property or that property, but you're going to start seeing massive increases in rent pretty fast. Especially in the apartment complexes, like if you think that those amenities are a good value, they're not. You're paying for them, and you're not going to use them like almost ever. They're never going to appreciate for you. It's not an investment. It's just renting is like prison, because you get used to it and you get complacent with it. Instead of saving your money and investing in yourself and creating wealth for you and your family, you're just going to pay for somebody else as well for the rest of their life.
These are amazing talking points. Like yesterday I saw an article, I think it was in Westwood, which is like a little local newspaper we have here, that talks, like the headline, I only read the first paragraph, but the headline was like, is homeownership still the American dream? Get on Facebook and talk about why homeownership is the American dream. Mm-hmm. Stop getting on Facebook and going, oh my God, we're not in a recession, guys. Stop trying to make recession happen. Mm-hmm. Doesn't matter if we're in a recession or not. Your buyers in your life are feeling like you are. So you need to go back to the drawing board to explain to them why homeownership is still the American dream, regardless of what market we are in. By the way, I'm not even gonna go there. Go on your Facebook. It just frustrates me so bad. I could rant about this for hours. Go on your Facebook and post about the difference between renting at this high-end complex and owning this property, right? Go back to, and you guys, if these are things that you don't know as agents and you want us to dig into this, like, please let us know. And we can do a whole episode on why homeownership is actually awesome, right? Like, talk about the equity that they will gain, which, by the way, they will continue to gain in every single recession minus 2008. Okay. Talk about tax benefits, talk about legacy for their children, right? Like, go back to the drawing board talking about why this rental sucks and why this owning a home is great. I saw someone post the other day, right? Rent is always 100% interest rate.
Yeah.
Always. Mm-hmm. Right. And then I've seen this thing around too, which I love. I don't know who invented it. Now at this point, it's like super tired. So I've come up with something new way to say it. But, they're saying marry the house, date the rate, meaning buy the house that you love. Because a lot of buyers are going, well, what happens if the market crashes? What happens if the market crashes? In my opinion, I think this is probably about as close to a crash as we're going to see. I think we could go down maybe another like 3%.
Mm-hmm. And then we'll start to go back up again. Guess what?
Yes. So this is your crash right now. Listen, this is the crash, right? So I think that's really cute, but they're right. Like, figure out ways to explain to buyers what, how, okay, I have to figure out how to articulate it myself clearly, but like, let's take last year over year. Let's say you had to pay $100,000 over on average. 90% of our homes in the Denver metro area last year went 100% or $100,000 over asking. So let's say last year you had to pay $100,000 over asking, and this year you have to pay a 5.5 or 6% interest rate. It takes a long time in a normal market to get that $100,000 back. But in 5 seconds, something could change and the rate could go back down to 3% and you could refinance, right? So
take some of that money that you would have spent, that $100,000 to pay over asking, and buy down your rate permanently.
Correct. Right. So for real, it's a lot easier to change your interest rate than it is to change overpaying, finger quotes, for a house. So if everybody's objection the last 2 years was, well, we're overpaying. Well, you're not overpaying right now. Mm-hmm. So buy at what is market value. And then if rates go down, refinance and change your interest rate.
Yeah. I think something that I'm going to roll out to my agents this week and have them start posting about is getting with a preferred lender. I would also say going to a couple of different apartment complexes and figuring out what their rental rate is now and what they're anticipating it's going to be in the next 6 months, what they're increasing to, and then going to your lender and finding like 10 houses in our market and having them run payments for each one and posting the actual payment amount. And then you have to do this disclaimer, but the lender will give you that disclaimer. But those numbers are going to be how you bring more buyers to the market. The price point of the house, the $500,000 number, it doesn't mean shit to a buyer. They don't know what it means. Okay. They don't know what it means today because they think interest rates are, 12% or some bullshit. They don't know what it means. You have to break it down to a monthly payment because that's what they're used to because they are renters. Okay. So if you break it down by monthly payment on a generic, in our market, I would do a VA loan. In your market, probably, FHA conventional, whatever. But if you do it that way, it's a lot easier for people to see the apples to apples comparison of what they would be paying to own versus what they would be paying to rent and not ever own anything in. Okay. It's a lot easier to make that choice to flip over to a buyer really quickly if they can see that it's a really bad life choice to keep renting, right? If they can own for less and they don't have to have X amount of dollars down, all of those things. That's the narrative you need to be teaching people. You need to re-educate the buyers in the market because right now they don't have any knowledge. Their last knowledge they received was you can't afford to be in this market. So it's your job to re-educate them.
Go back to every buyer that you said you can't afford to be in this market to over the last 2-3 years and ask them if they would like to jump in the market now. Make friends with every person at every apartment complex in your city. Ask them if you could come in and teach classes on how to buy a home. This is an amazing time to kick back in first-time homebuyer seminars, whether you do virtually or in person. Talk to people about how the hell homeownership even works, right? There's so many.
At those apartment complexes, one of the people that work in that office is a licensed realtor. So the way that you get in and they sign off on you coming in there to talk about home ownership, you pay them a referral fee for whoever buys a house. And you can do that legally because they are licensed.
Watch RESPA. Read RESPA before you go paying things. But she's right. Make friends at all those apartment complexes. Go back to all those buyers. If you don't have buyers who you couldn't help get into houses over the last couple of years, go to the busiest agents in your market and just say, hey, can I have all your, excuse me, for those who are listening, shit buyers? Like, can I have every buyer that you said no to working with the last 3 years? Can I work those leads and pay you a referral fee? Right? Can I service those people for you? Re-engage with your referral agents across the entire United States. Here's the other thing, guys. Agents are in fear right now. They're fucking terrified. There's a big difference between being a renter and staying a renter and being a realtor and staying a realtor. Agents are terrified right now about their income completely going out of the window and them not being able to feed their family. Engage with, do you remember how during COVID, we kept telling you guys to don't worry about a sale. That's disgusting. Just check on your people. Go to your sphere and make sure that your sphere is okay. Ask if they need anything. Ask if you can run a grocery run or bring them NyQuil. Now is the time to kick back in with your agent to agent community. Hey, guy in South Oklahoma, how are you doing? What's going on in your market? Are things okay? Is there anything that I could help with? Do you need anything? Can I maybe share some of your listings on my Facebook to get you some traction? Check in with your referral agent community right now, right? Because that's unless you're a very strong agent or you build really good relationships, that's been kind of impenetrable for a long time too, right? But people are scared and they're hurting. And right now is a really good time to stand in the gap of people's fear with them. So go to that too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you have a really good opportunity as agents, not just the buyers in this market, but as agents, you have a really great opportunity right now. And if you're not taking it, you are going to miss the boat quickly. It is leaving the dock. You need to run to it because the people that do know the market are going to start changing that narrative. You're going to start seeing it because it's going to be targeted to you and all of your sphere because you're not doing a good job of explaining it. And so those people are going to go to other realtors.
100%. So, and we're definitely, again, listen, we're not saying shut off your seller marketing. That's not what we're saying at all. In fact, probably next week we should talk about how to market to sellers right now, because everyone should be feeling a tremendous amount of urgency to sell right now before the end of the year. However, the way that you flip your own personal market, your business really quickly is to go after the buyers right now. So you got to get to where the buyers are. You got to figure out how to talk their language, right? I mean, you know, for like years, we've told, Angela's right, tell the story. Like we've told the story of like, you know, I had a guy who was amazing. He wanted a specific car his whole life. And he was able to, like 2 years ago, sell his property, buy a new house, and buy that car in cash. That was a huge success story, right? Like now your success story is going to be about Joe and Kathy got a house. They got all their closing costs paid, and they were able to buy their interest rate down to 4%. So their monthly mortgage payment is now only $1,800 a month or whatever it is, right? So you need to start telling those stories, but they need to pivot the other way.
Yeah, single mom that's been saving money for the last 3 years so she can have money for appraisal gap now is able to save all of that money and put it into her savings account and buy a house with no money down. And her family now has a place to live instead of the gross, disgusting apartment that she's been in that the landlord has not been maintaining. Like those are the stories that you're going to need to start telling. And it doesn't need to be inflated. It needs to be a real story. You know, these people have had it hard. These buyers have had it hard the last couple of years. And we really need to celebrate their wins, in my opinion.
Yeah. And if you're a listing agent and you've been rude to buyer's agents, good luck to you. Good morning to everybody except for the listing agents that were assholes during this market. We're going to enjoy watching that a little bit. But next we can go over talking to sellers. We can go over more ways to go out there and find buyers. I love Angela's idea about Facebook ads right now. I love Angela's idea about creating Facebook groups for the apartment complexes in town. So Facebook groups got super popular for housing communities, right? Like because people wanted all the listings. Everyone forgot about apartments. Go make them for all the apartments. Like that's freaking brilliant. I mean, dude, the stuff that you would have seen Angela and I do back in 2008, woo, we've been arrested for knocking on doors. We've been all the things, right? So I know that this is really hard, agents, because we've just been through this period that's been really tough, and a lot of people are really burned out. And it's really, like, I think so many people thought this would be a coast year and this is going to be a work year. And I'm sorry for that. But that is the way that real estate works. The second that you get used to something, it likes to change on you. So get your mindset right. Like I truly feel digging into those numbers about why this is an exciting time for buyers will make your mindset feel better too.
Yeah. And plan a freaking vacation, because that always works. I swear to God. Like, I'm just waiting for it, because like I know I'm going on vacation for my birthday, and I'm like, oh my God, like it's going to be crazy. There's going to be like all the buyers are going to come out of the woodwork for then. Like I'm psyching myself up for it. So yeah, I just ordered some more of these guys.
Oh, the St. Joe's, bust out the St. Joe's. One more thing, like the economists are saying we're sitting in this period that an economist likes to call a vapor lock, by the way, which basically is just a stalemate. So it means that nobody is doing anything. So
yeah,
there's a thing called, again, in economics, the cycle of disruption, which means we've been up here happy the last couple of years. And now something new has been introduced to the economic world, which is higher interest rates and inflation. And that's really freaked everybody out, and it's caused all this disruption. And then we have to sit in this period between here and here, the other end of the circle, before it comes around again, which is called a vapor lock, which just means this period where people are terrified to do anything. And usually they estimate that that period lasts somewhere between 90 days and 6 months. So I don't know where we're tracking when it started from, but just know that that doesn't last forever. At some point, higher interest rates and inflation become the new normal. I think we're going to all have PTSD from that phrase for the rest of our lives after the last 2 years. But at some point, all of that becomes the new normal. And then buyers understand that this is just now how it's going to be, and they start buying again. Now, we may not ever see what we saw over the last 2 years ever again. And we tried to tell the market that.
And this might be just like a few weeks window for buyers before everyone figures out, oh shit, now's a great time to buy. And then all the buyers jump in at the same time.
Correct.
So
Paper
get on
lock.
it now.
Yep.
Because you never know if the rates are going to level back out again and stop being so crazy, you know?
I would not be surprised if we see that happen towards the end of the year or around election season. So yeah, nothing lasts forever, right? That cycle of disruption never lasts forever. We're just sitting in that vapor lock period right now where we're at a total stalemate, and it will turn. It will turn one way or another. What we do not know right now is which way that's going to turn, right? It could decline further. It could, I don't think it's going to pop back up massively, but it could decline further, or it could continue to level out. Nancy says, if you were going to cold call, do you have a source for a list to call, or do you go to door to door? Yep, absolutely. Yeah, there's a ton of, we can go into that in depth if anyone wants to hear about that, but there's a ton of places to get your data. Cole, C-O-L-E is my favorite. RedX is another good one, but there's a lot of places to get your data. Again, those resources cost a fair amount of money. There's ways to get them for free. A lot of times brokerages have accounts. There's classes that you can attend that will give you a free subscription for a while. But in the beginning, I would even, like I said, go to the bigger agents, go to your broker, right? And just say, like, can I go back through all the leads over the last 3 years that like nobody gave a shit about because they were like finger quotes shit buyers, which is a terrible thing that anyone ever said. And door to door, absolutely. I love to door knock, like love to door knock. So yeah, you can absolutely do that as well. It's different though, depending on if you're door knocking for buyers, that's a very different type of door knocking. You have to do a lot more scrubbing because most of those people, unless you're going to an apartment complex, are going to be homeowners. So yeah. But yeah, absolutely. We could dive into that more.
Oh, well, hopefully I see some different narratives posted. I know that I'm going to start posting differently on social media here this week. So we'll see how it goes. And maybe we'll have some data for you next week on some pros and cons of what that yielded, if anything, yet.
Yeah, I mean, the sky is not falling. You know, the only thing that falls from the sky is rain if you're working in the right way. So just take a breath, take a second, shake off the last couple of years. I know it changed really fast, but pivot. You got to pivot. We love you guys. If there's anything specific you want us to talk about next week, anything that you're really struggling with, shoot us a message. So happy to be back. Thank you for the time to handle family stuff. We appreciate it and love you guys. Bye.